B.B. King is one of my absolute all-time favourite musicians, let alone guitarists. He sings beautifully, and really, I'm never disappointed when I listen to B.B. King. Who could be? What I've done in this lesson today is really take you through some of the ways you can get the flavour of B.B. King into your playing. I'm not in any way stating that I can play like B.B. King. Of course I can't. But we can all take some things from him that are such elegant and beautiful phrases. And to be honest with you, of all the great blues players, I find that if you're an early intermediate or whatever, even for a beginner, there are things you can take that you can add into your playing, because there's a lot of feel and heart and very voiceful playing, if that makes sense. And it's not about fast licks really with BB. So that's what this lesson is about, getting you to take several phrases away that you can put into your playing and get that BB King feeling. And sometimes just to play to yourself, that's one of the nicest ways to play the guitar, I find. So anyway, the lesson will be now it's about, 10 or 15 minutes long. Then I'll take you through what gear I've used today, as I normally do, because I enjoy that and I think you enjoy that. And please let me know in the comments what I might be able to do to improve on this teaching format. I haven't got round to tabbing anything. I was thinking of starting a Patreon where a monthly fee, nothing too big, and I'd start putting tabs of lessons up in a Patreon. If I have enough demand for that, then I would definitely consider it. So let me know. I'm assuming that whatever I get in from the Patreon, I'll have to pay to someone else to do the tabbing if I don't have time myself anyway. But let me know in the comments what you think of that as an idea. So yeah, let's get on with it. Okay, so let's start by talking about what is the BB box. So let's do it in the key of G. So we've got our G dominant 7 and our C and D7. So that's position 1. The BB box is really like up to position 3. So in the case of G, the BB box is going to be okay, so in the key of G, which we are in today, the BB box is just the following. I'm just going to tell you what it is, and we'll talk more about it as we go along. So really starting on the 3rd string, it's fret 9, and then on the B string, fret 8, and then frets 10 and 11, and then on the top string, fret 8 and 10. So you might recognize it from something like this. Or so I want to show you today how to get up to the BB box, as in we wouldn't just generally start straight up there, but there are ways to sort of start and get a blues going. So let's find a couple of ways to get there first. So there's an old BB King tutorial tape he did, which is fantastic if you can find it. And I think they've actually released it on DVD as well. It's on all over YouTube. And he starts like this. So that is the major pentatonic in the 1st position at G, and it's frets 3 and 5 on the B and the E string. So what I was doing there was just showing you that the bend is 2 frets. So, and then you want to work on that vibrato. And I find best with doing BB stuff is you're tilting. And that's the problem, is you'll often pull it off. So you need to go more upward. Okay, another way to start it could be, let's go for bending the 3rd fret of the G string, the 3rd string. So really we do want to get that G, that root note there, in there, because that sounds good for that opening phrase. Okay, so we can go. or we can do. Okay, so that's the minor pentatonic. Then often you might throw in that's the major pentatonic. You'll often throw in the minor. So from there we can go. So that's fret 6, 3, and then G string, 5, and then a slight bend on the third. So. Okay. Now another way to start this could be to get up to. So the fret 8 of the B string is the root note as well. It's the same as on the 3rd fret of the E string. Okay, so we want to get to that in this first phrase. What we can do is we can bend the 5th fret of the 3rd string and then bar the B and E strings on the 3rd fret and then slide straight to the 8th fret on the B string. Okay, and I think that sounds great. Also, it gets you straight to the BB box, which is then in that position at fret 8. So let's go through a couple of licks up there in the BB box. So once we're here, one that he does a lot is fret 9 of the G string, and then tapping on from the 8th to the 10th on the B string, and then back to the 9th of the G string, and then finishing on the root note, that's the 8th fret of the B string. And then you can really harp on this root note. So what I like to do is then, so that last lick was fret 9 on the G string, and then jump up to the 10th fret of the E string, and then the 8th fret of the B string. And I like to use that as a sort of refrain, you know, I come back to it. So far we can do. So to get up there, if you've not done it in the first lick, you can just do something like I just did. So that gets you there if you do. So you slide from the 6th to the 8th fret. And what's quite nice is if you don't just leave it at those single notes, but rather you have these sort of passing note type things. So in this case, you could do 5th fret of the G, 3rd fret of the B, 6th fret of the B, slide up, and then just hit back on the 6th fret of the B string. Just it gives that slight difference, you know. Okay, so once you're up in the BB box, obviously there's so many things you can do. BB King himself tried to be as economical with his notes as possible, which I love. I think we all do. And one I picked up from him that I really, really like. So it's a 3 fret bend. So you're actually bending up to the 13th fret on that E string from the 10th fret. So you can do that. So you would bend it up to the 13th fret and then you can hit it as its own note. So and resolve it back to the root note by doing the 11th fret, the 10th fret, slightly bent, and then that G again. Okay, and another one that you can do, so So he would often do this as an index finger bend. See if I can do it. He was using 8s though, and I'm using 10s. It's doable. Many of you will find it easier. Some of you will find that impossible. So what I tend to do is go, so it's the 9th fret of the G string, 8th fret of the B string, 11th fret of the B string slightly bent, and then the 8th fret of the E string. I tend to go there with my middle finger. And then you've got 2 fingers to bend with. And then sometimes you can resolve that by, you come back to the B string 10th fret. And when you resolve on the root note, you don't always have to finish there. Like the resolution has happened really. So you can actually finish on a different sort of ending to the phrase. So what you, as I just did there, you've bent the 8th fret of the top string, 2 frets up, and then you come back to the 10th fret of the B string. Slight bend. So bend up, and then hit it not bent, and then back to the root note on the 8th fret of the B string. And then you just, almost as an afterthought, you don't hit the string again, but you go from your root note. You just bend slightly on the 10th fret again. So far we've got something like this. Okay, so you've played around within the B box and you want to get up to the next chord, or you want to come back to the first chord. So what you can do is you can do, he does sometimes an arpeggio. So we're in, the BB box is basically where the 4th chord, the C is. So from that root note, you can then map out a C chord. This is what I've seen him do sometimes. So that's an arpeggio, basically 8th fret B string, 9th fret G string, 10th fret of the 4th and 5th, 7th fret of the 5th, and then the root note of that chord, the C, the 8th fret on the 6th. And then you can slide down. And then you can start again up on at the first position. So B.B. King plays a lot between the major and the minor. So you'll find that you're sometimes playing the major pentatonic, and sometimes you're playing the minor. And then you can mix them together. What you want to do quite often is hit the root note of the chord that you're aiming at, so the G. And then when you move to the second chord, the C, you can do. So, sorry, I was just figuring that out for myself. So with the G, and the root always sounds good to come back to. hope that's been a useful start to the BB box. Obviously, can't show you everything in one lesson, but if you take something from this lesson, it would be that you can start in your first position, or, and at some point early on, if you can get up to that BB box, then you can play around so beautifully. So yeah, I hope that's been useful. Okay, well, my gear setup today couldn't really be any simpler, but that's really what BB King was all about. A guitar with humbuckers and an amp that you enjoy. For me, this is the Lazy J J10. It's a 10-watt tweed amp. I adore this amp. It's possibly my favourite amp that I've got, favourite amp that I've used. And I don't need any pedals with it because it gets this sweet overdriven tone or edge of breakup tone, and with these humbuckers it just has sustain and feel and a sound that I adore. So that's all I need. And what's great with this amp is not that I'm using it myself, but it does have like an attenuator, so you can roll back the volume once you've got the feel that you like. And with that, I'm using my Gibson Custom Shop R9, and that's loaded with Sun Bear PAFs that were custom made for this guitar. And it has a real open vintage character, much like, you know, original PAFs were. BB King himself, of course, used that semi-hollow ES355, but with the F-hole covered up. He played so loud. I've heard that in the early days he used to stuff cloth or things inside the hole when he did have a hole, because of feedback. You get a lot of feedback. And then he used a Fender Twin Reverb, which is a huge amp, very loud, very clean and crisp. And he also often used a Lab Series L5. Now, I don't know a lot about that, but I do know it's a solid state amp. And again, it just had a big, clean tone. And that's all he needed, really. In those later years, you know, he was just BB King. You know, the guitar, the amp, it was just him. And that's something I try and take from BB King, is he made so much with not so little. I mean, his guitar was fabulous and those big clean amps gave him what he needed, but he didn't need a complicated setup. That's what I'm saying. So anyway, look, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, found it useful. I do private lessons, so if you want more of this or you want me to go over it with you again, I'll leave my email address in the description. And yeah, I guess I'll just play something on the way out and I'll see you next time. Oh, lastly, I wanted to mention my giveaway. I'm giving away this Protein pedal. That's a Bluesbreaker pedal on the left and a Nobles ODR1, so like a Nashville style overdrive, beautiful harmonics on this side. When I hit 7,500 subs, I'll give this away. You just have to subscribe and comment, and I'll pick your name out of a hat anywhere in the world. So anyway, thanks for watching. Cheers. Thank you.